Hi, everyone. I am Liz Barletta from Lamacchia Associates, a real estate attorney, and we're here with two of my favorite people to talk about some frequently asked questions for home buyers out there. So, Deb, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Deb Siciliano from Lamacchia Realty. And this is going to be a great little chat between friends. Look forward to it.
And I'm Ted Malkhasian with Guaranteed Rate. Yeah, let's start. So, Liz, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, we get a lot of questions from our clients. They always ask us, why is there lender's title insurance that I have to pay for, and then there's owner's title insurance I have to pay for? What's a good explanation for owner's title insurance since it's optional?
Yeah. Totally great question. I get it's like literally one of the top ones I always get asked by buyers when I talk to them. So there is these two different types of title insurance. Unfortunately for buyers, one of the requirements to get a loan is to pay for the lender's policy. So you see that that's not an option. It's a requirement that the lender has, that the consumer does pay for the title insurance policy for the lender. The problem with, not the problem necessarily, but what buyers need to understand is that doesn't protect you as a homeowner at all. It's only protecting the bank. So what does protect you as a homeowner is what we call the owner's title insurance policy. And yes, it is an optional cost, meaning if you don't want to pay for it as part of your closing costs, you don't have to. But again, you run the risk of not having that protection. The beauty of title insurance is that it's a one-time cost for owner's title insurance. So if you are in your home for 50 years, and then when you sell it 50 years from now, there's a title issue that pops up, your policy is still in effect. It's not something that you have to renew every year, which is great. So yes, the cost is kind of heavy for a lot of people. It's kind of a shocking fee, but at the same time, if you think about it, that it's once and that you don't have to consistently re-up it every year like a homeowner's insurance policy, that's it makes it feel a little bit less sort of a large of a fee. So yeah, so there is the difference between the two. Lenders, you get no protection, but owner's policy, you do get protected. It is an optional fee, but something that we really, really recommend because there's just certain things that you don't know when you're just researching title. Just to give one quick example, when we were researching title, if someone at the Registry of Deeds misindexed like a mortgage, for example, and when we're doing our research, we don't find that mortgage at the Registry of Deeds because it's not properly indexed to you. People would think, oh, well, you didn't do your job, we can sue you for malpractice. But no, because we researched it and it couldn't have been discovered because it was misindexed. So that's something that you couldn't necessarily come after us for because we did our job right. But with title insurance, it would protect you against something like that. So just one simple example, but definitely a difference, important in my opinion to buy both.
Yeah, I always tell them it's super important to have it. Yeah,
definitely. And Deb, one of the things that I think a lot of home buyers out there always are asking is, how do we get the process started? How long is it going to take? What do you think?
All very good questions. So I like to do a little conversation. We used to do these in person, but now we do them mainly on Zoom or over the phone. But, just to try to get a sense of what their expectation is, how important it is for them to move quickly, or are they just kind of kicking the tires? So that starts off the process for me. If I know somebody is running out of their lease and they need to get out, we will accelerate the process. Obviously, if they're first-time home buyers, I try to educate them on what to expect, which I think is super important. So I will try to find out what areas they're looking at. Are they looking for multis, a condo, a single family? And then the next most important thing is that they need a pre-approval letter. And what that seems to be the hardest thing for people. Sometimes I have a lot of people that have been searching for 6 months, but they still are not quite there, ready to do the pre-approval. I don't know if they feel that might be like a bigger commitment or it's scary to them. So that's kind of, and time frame, it can go anywhere. I just had somebody put in her first offer and we got it accepted yesterday. That doesn't happen that often, but you know, it happens. And she was prepared, she was ready, she had everything ready to go. So that time frame can be from anywhere from a month to a year, depending upon the buyer and the situation and the circumstances and what type of property that they're looking for. So besides having the conversation with your agent, the next most important thing is your pre-approval. So with that, Ted, I would like to ask if you could speak a little bit about what's that process look like from your perspective?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that pre-approval is one of the most important things that the client can do in the very beginning stages. It's two things. One, you want to make sure that you understand how you qualify, what you qualify for, what options you have, how much are closing costs, what do you need at closing. You basically want to have all the information possible so you're confident when you're making that offer, so you know exactly what it's going to look like. But even more important, when we do a pre-approval, we basically look at it how an underwriting will look at the file. So we want to avoid any pitfalls. We don't want the client to pay for a home inspection, pay for an appraisal, go through the whole process halfway and get to underwriting and all of a sudden the loan doesn't work for whatever reason. So that's why it's so important to have a solid pre-approval from a reputable lender and for them to know and feel confident, know exactly what they qualify for, you know, so.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people thinking about your timeline, Deb, it's so true. Like, I feel like the people who are the most prepared, the timeline ends up being shorter because they just have their ducks in a row. They're super serious. They're focused. And that a lot of that comes with, you know, talking to Ted and seeing what they can qualify for. And sometimes I feel like it's true. Like they don't want to necessarily make the call because then it makes it real. But if you can prepare yourself and really know what you can afford, it just makes the whole process simpler. And there's a lot less like ruining of expectations in your mind, you know? Because I feel like all of us watch HGTV and we want the most amazing house ever. And that's not necessarily what we can all afford. So having that like at the beginning of the process, knowing sort of your direction is huge.
Well, and it's
I would go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Now it's important for their agent because obviously we want to know what price range they're in. I don't want to be showing them something that they cannot afford because that would be very heartbreaking at this point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ted.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's so many times we hear when we do the pre-approval, the client's always, we're just super casually looking, want to find something in 6 months. Next thing, you know, I get a frantic phone call a week later. Oh, we saw a house, you have to put an offer in. And, you know, it's just, you never know if the right house comes along. You know, it's important for that client to be ready to make that offer.
Right. Ted and I actually just went through this. We had a mutual client that was just going to start looking, and within a week we had to get an offer in. It was funny. That's how it happens.
Exactly.
They see the right thing and they see the home that they want, they're going to make a quick jump. So
especially in this market, once they start seeing that in this market you have to move fast, and if they're seeing something that they like, then it just kind of puts all the gears in high gear, I guess.
So like they just see like a outline of the steps to take. So they get pre-approved, they have an offer accepted, and all of a sudden they need an attorney. So I guess, Liz, you want to tell us like why it's important for the buyer to have representation? Yeah. For that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I think one of the things that I always do with clients is as soon as the offer is accepted, I'm introduced to a client, a prospective client, I always call them and walk them through the process, because I think it's one of those things that's a little bit shocking to most home buyers. They, you know, obviously think of their lender and their realtor, but then an attorney kind of gets thrown into the mix at the end and they're like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense, but why do I need you?
Yeah.
So part of our role is, most of the time it's kind of a dual role where we're working with an individual buyer, negotiating the purchase and sale agreement, which is an important document where it could be very lengthy, so 15 to 20 pages long, prepared by the seller attorney. So obviously if a seller attorney is preparing something, they're doing it to protect their client. So it's so important to you for home buyers to not just sign that document, but to have their own attorney review it, negotiate terms, add in protections that are important to not only protect the rights as a buyer, but also the deposit money. And that's one of our main roles. We also make sure to track all the important deadlines. The most important deadline is related to what Ted does. So it's called the mortgage contingency clause. And if a buyer is getting a mortgage, if for some reason the lender can't commit to them by that day, maybe because the tax returns haven't been filed or so other things that are outside of the lender's control, if that deadline passes and then you are denied for your loan, if the attorney didn't extend that date, your deposit, that 5% that you're putting down, could be at risk, meaning the seller could keep it. So that's one of the really important roles that we have as an attorney for the buyer, is to track those dates and make sure that everything is extended if needed. We also review the documents with the client at closing, making sure that they actually understand all the mumbo jumbo that's in those documents, like the 100-page closing package. We try and make sure that people understand what it is they're signing, which I think is super important. On the bank side, so I talked about a dual role. So the first part is that buyer rep. The second part is the bank representation. So in Ted's case, guaranteed rate would require, so it's actually required by state law to have an attorney essentially conduct the closing and research the title. So other states, you don't have to have an attorney. Here in Massachusetts, it's a requirement. So what we do for guaranteed rate, for example, is research the title, make sure that there's no title issues, and then conduct the closing and act as that, what we call a settlement agent. So for the most part, we're a dual role. You have to have us as part of the closing. You don't have to have your own buyer attorney, but for the most part, if you're having somebody representing the bank, they can help with you as an individual buyer as well. So the majority of the time, that's what we do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, super important. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is probably one of the biggest purchases someone can have, and you don't want to just wing it. You definitely want someone to represent you and make sure that everything is done the right way. So super important.
And we usually can discount fees when we're working sort of hand in hand with the bank as well. So that's also a good sort of little thing for buyers to think about. So Deb, this one's an interesting question because I feel like this is something that people think. Is it better to go directly to a listing agent when a house is on the market, or do you get a buyer agent?
Well, so I love having this question asked.
Such a common question, though.
And I represent on occasion a seller as well as a buyer. So when I am a buyer's agent, obviously my loyalties are to the buyer, so I have their best interest at heart. It doesn't cost buyers anything to use a buyer's agent. I think that's sometimes they think that they have to pay for that. I earn my commission based on whatever the seller's contract is paying. So it doesn't cost you anything. You're kind of getting me for free, if you will. And my job is to get your offer accepted, get you the best price, and be very competitive in our process. So some people do feel that they might have an edge if they go to the seller's agent directly, but I don't feel that way. I've had some pretty good results with my offers. So, we're trained on how to get your offer accepted. So I think I would have to say, no, don't go to the seller's agent. Go, come to a good buyer's agent. That's who you need.
Absolutely.
And can I add to that? I feel like a lot of people have this misconception that if they go straight to the list agent, the seller is going to save money because they won't have to pay a buyer's agent. But that's not always the case. A lot of times, if the seller's agent has a buyer come, they're still going to get paid the same. The seller's still going to get paid. Seller is still going to pay the same amount. So it's not like you're saving the seller money, so they're going to want to go with you. That's really not the case.
No, and I think the key to that, that is correct. The seller's agent's going to make that money and maybe more if you go to them directly. But I also feel that, again, you want someone that has a decent track record on getting offers accepted. Going to the seller's agent doesn't necessarily make that true. You don't know what is going on with the other offers. So yes, that's my strong feeling on that.
Agreed.
Could I just maybe Ted? Sometimes I think that people wonder if what does, so first of all, maybe twofold question. Do I need 20% down in order to qualify for a mortgage? And what are some of the other programs that might be out there for people that don't have 20% to put down?
Yep, that's such a common question. So you definitely do not need 20% down to purchase a home. Actually, I would say for, let's say, every 10 pre-approvals we do, maybe 1 out of the 10 is really putting 20% down. There's a lot of great first-time homebuyer programs where you can put 3% down, 5% down, and those are super competitive with the rates. So you certainly do not need to put 20% down. I would say most people that put 20% down are usually like selling and buying, where they get to sell their property and they have the equity to put that, but it's common to put much less than 20% down. So do you have a second question in there? I'm sorry.
No, maybe I could just ask you again.
Yeah.
So have we touched upon the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval?
Oh,
I might have
sure. So
anything, but
no. So it's a lot of times you can go to let's say you go to your local bank, for example, and or you call them. They'll ask you a couple of quick questions. They might do a credit check and they'll issue what it's called a pre-qualification. So it's not as thorough as a pre-approval. And if I was a buyer, I wouldn't want to use a pre-qual to make an offer and get an offer accepted, because then what's going to happen is everything that a pre-approval was supposed to do will happen at the time of purchase, and you don't want to face those hurdles during the process. You want to, like I said earlier, you want to have all your ducks in a row. You want to know exactly what you qualify for, how much you qualify for, so there's no surprises. So you're confident, and it's nice, smooth process for you once your offer gets accepted, because it should be an exciting time. You're buying a home and not stress out and have all kinds of issues with the lender. So, and unfortunately, that's pretty common with lenders and banks just issuing pre-quals. It's just, I don't know why, but it's common, and it doesn't make sense to me. So
just to give a story for the home buyers out there, I had a client that unfortunately went, had their lender that they wanted to go to, and I had never worked with that person before. They pre-qualified them, so they didn't look at any documents. They just said, yeah, I make this. Yeah, my credit score looks like this. And they spit out a pre-qualification based off of that conversation. Didn't verify anything. My client was renting. We were under agreement. Purchase and sale agreement was signed. Deposit was given. All these different things. The person gave notice to their landlord that they were leaving. The landlord got a new tenant for right when they were going to be closing. Something that would have been discovered at that onset conversation, once they looked at documents, came up, and they were denied financing. Now they're staying at their apartment with the landlord screaming at them because they had another person trying to move in, disrupting 2 families plus the seller, because the seller also, I think, were actually agreement to buy something else with those funds. So it was just such a horrible experience for that home buyer, and it was all because they said, you know what, maybe it's too much heavy lifting at the beginning to send credits, documents, whatever Teddy needs to do that pre-qualification, and they went to this other bank and they relied on that piece of paper, and instead of actually verifying anything. So that's why I love working with Ted, because that's not something that he would ever do, because it's just a waste of time for everybody.
Yeah. You know, it's so common. I hear, oh, my bank didn't ask for all this stuff. And, you know, in my head, I'm like, they're not doing you a favor. You know, it's underwriting is going to ask for it once you go through the process. And it's much better for you to find out now than while you're in process. And one thing about lenders, they don't calculate the income the way that you actually receive the income. There's different calculations, bonus income, commission income, hourly pay, salary, self-employed. Everything's completely different on how we calculate than what you actually as a client earn. So even though you may think that you have a good amount of income to qualify, but for the lender, the way we calculate it could be completely different. So that's why it's so important to have all your paperwork, tax returns, pay stubs, W-2s, everything ready. Make sure the lender reviews everything and you're solid in terms of your pre-approval. So
yeah, so true. Yeah.
Liz, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I always hear the homestead question. What's a homestead? Why do I need it? That's I think that's super important. People always Googling stuff and asking questions. So
yeah, so great question. So the homestead in Massachusetts is unique than other states. So I think I have a lot of clients who come from other states and they say, I'm from Florida originally, so I'll just use Florida as an example. They say, oh, we have to homestead our property. Because in Florida, it's like a tax vehicle, as a protection for taxes. That's not how it is here. What the homestead is here is a protection against creditors. So in the event that you are going to occupy the property as your primary residence, that's what it's reserved for people who actually live in the home. So if you're an investor and you have a couple of different properties, you can't put a homestead on each. You have one principal residence, and that's the only property that you can homestead. And so what that actually means is if, God forbid, you are sued because you owe someone money, so against any creditors, they won't be able to force the sale of your home to pay whatever debts you owe. The purpose of it in the state's mind is to protect your primary residence against any kind of debts, so you have somewhere to live. So protecting that home for you and your family. That doesn't mean you don't owe whatever creditor sues you that money. So what will happen is they can still attach the property, meaning put a lien on the property. A lien basically is a piece of paper that says you owe X person money and it's recorded in the public records. They can still do that, hoping that one day you sell the property or refinance and then get paid in that manner. But when you have a homestead recorded for your primary residence, that creditor can't take your home away. So that's what's super important for all home buyers who are living as their primary to get that done. At Ligris, at least for my team, we've never, if we know that you're buying as a primary residence, we slap that document on there. We don't have to ask us for it because many people don't know to ask for it. So if we know you're going to buy as your primary, we always make sure that you have that done. And it's surprising because that's not always the case for other attorneys. There have been numerous times that I've done refinances where I never represented the buyer when they bought the place. And one of the things we check for when we do a refi is if they have a homestead recorded. And it's amazing how many times people bought as their primary and never had a homestead. So with us, we always take care of that at the closing.
And it's so inexpensive too. I mean,
it's $35 to record the document. $35.
Yeah,
amazing.
It's so worth it. Yeah,
so worth it. And the law changed back in 2015, I want to say, or maybe 14. Don't quote me. The law changed, so now you don't have to record a new one every time you refinance. The law before would require you to re-record it. Now you record it once. The only time you have to do another one is when you reach the age of 62, because then you have an additional protection as someone who's elderly. So that's really the only other time you'll have to record a new homestead. So yeah, one of the things that actually, Deb, just to maybe wrap up with one of the last questions is, how do you make an offer competitive? Because I know a lot of people out there, they hear about multiple offer situations and maybe that makes them nervous to even start the process, but you have a really, really good reputation of being able to get those offers accepted. So what's your competitive edge?
I'm giving away secrets.
Just work with
don't give them all away.
No, I won't.
Yeah.
Honestly, the way I approach things, I first and foremost, even if I have somebody, I'll take you through the process for this person that I just got the offer accepted this week. she was going to an open house on Saturday, and the first thing I did was, I have a virtual business card with my picture and my information, and I sent it to the listing agent, and I just said, hi, it's Deb from Lamacchia. I have a buyer coming in, single mom, and I just want to let you know, give you a heads up that she's coming. And he said, I'll look for her. And that night he sent me a text and he said, she came in, she was lovely. So I've already built a rapport with him. The long story short, when we put our offer in, but I asked him a couple of questions. I like to know what's going on with the sellers. What's their preference for closing time? How does he feel about an escalation clause? Because a lot of agents don't want them. And so I don't want to put my buyer in a situation where I put an escalation clause in and they don't even want to look at it. So I said, how do you feel about that? I said, I really want to win her. She loves the place. I really want to win her this deal. So he was like, yeah, no problem. Put an escalation clause in, do this, do that. All this stuff that sorry, I have dogs.
It's all good. It's all good.
So I feel like, the rapport with the selling agent is the number one most important possible thing that I can do. After that, it's a negotiating tactic. And then if we decide we're really going to put an offer in, we go in with a bigger golden retrievers. We put a little bit more of an earnest money deposit down to kind of make it look like we're really serious about what we want to do. And it turned out that he called me back and he's like, we loved your offer. And believe it or not, Ted, I'm going to mention this because this was he almost didn't accept our offer because of who she was getting her mortgage through. Mortgage brokers are a very important part of the puzzle. I explained to him that I'm on it and I'll make sure that the guy performs for us. And if he doesn't, he's out and I'm going to refer somebody else very quickly. But the point of the matter is, it's all putting it all together and presenting a nice package without the dogs
Totally.
in the back.
No, but that's so true. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was just going to say, I would add every pre-approval that we send out for our clients, and when they make an offer, the listing agent's always calling me, always calling the lender to kind of to gauge, if they're, a good lender, reputable, or sometimes I hear real estate agents would say, I've called the lender 2-3 times, he didn't answer, so I don't know, I don't feel comfortable with this because I have another offer, I know who the lender is, and it's the same offer, I'm going to go with this one. So the lender, the real estate agent, the attorney, everybody plays such a big role in getting the offer accepted, especially in today's crazy competitive market that we're in. So
absolutely. I think it's so important because, like Deb, what you're talking about, and Ted too, it's simple things. They're things that one would think everybody does, but no, like a lot of people don't do that. The fact that you call the list agent and say, hey, is this even something that your seller would even want to look at? Like, that's huge. Other people would just tell the buyers, oh yeah, just do it. It's going to win. But if you don't have that rapport with the other side, it just takes away from the potential of getting your buyer's offer accepted. And that I hear a million times, Ted, oh, I called and he or she didn't pick up. And so I don't trust them. So it's huge. And that the team is what really, really matters, to your point.
Yes.
100%.
Well, with that being said, thank you guys for chatting with us. If I think any home buyers out there are interested to ask any further questions, I know that we're all going to be posting it on our social media. You can always add questions to the video, and we'll be happy to talk to you or call you. And maybe we can also include all of our contact information at the end as well. But thank you all.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.